I don't even know why I'm telling this story. Maybe because I still can't make sense of it. Maybe because part of me still misses her, even after everything she did. Her name was Alyssa, and when I met her, she seemed perfect. The kind of woman who walks into a room and every head turns, but somehow she made you believe you were the only one she saw. I fell hard. Too hard. In the beginning, it felt like I'd finally found peace. She was funny, confident, always knew what to say. She'd look me in the eyes and tell me I made her feel safe. And God, I wanted to believe that. But safety was never what she wanted. She wanted control. It started small. She'd joke about my clothes, the way I texted, the people I hung out with. "You're cute when you try to impress people," she'd say, laughing, but it didn't feel like a compliment. I'd laugh too, pretend it didn't sting, because I didn't want to ruin the moment. She'd get jealous when I went out with friends. Said it was because she missed me, because she wanted me all to herself. At first, that sounded romantic until it wasn't. She started showing up where I was, pretending it was just coincidence. Once, she came to my office just to say hi, and stayed there for hours, waiting until I finished work. My coworkers thought it was sweet. I thought so too, back then. But over time, it changed. Every little thing became an argument. If I didn't text back fast enough, she'd go quiet for hours, and then hit me with, "If you really cared, you'd make time." If I told her she hurt me, she'd cry. Every time, until I was the one apologizing. She was a master at flipping guilt. She made me feel like my feelings were proof I was ungrateful. And then there were the messages. One night, her phone lit up on the table while she was in the shower. I didn't mean to look, but the name caught my attention. Someone I didn't know. I opened it. The texts weren't sexual, but they were close. Too close. Late-night confessions. "I wish you were here. You make my days better." That kind of thing. When I asked her about it, she smiled. Actually smiled. And said, "Wow, you really don't trust me, do you?" I remember standing there, holding her phone, feeling like I was the crazy one. She made me apologize for even thinking she could cheat. She cried, told me I was projecting my insecurities onto her. And I believed her. I always did. But something in me broke that night. I started paying attention to the tone in her voice, to the hours she was working late, to the way she suddenly turned her phone face down when I walked into the room. And the worst part? I didn't even need proof. I already knew. I just didn't want to admit it. Because deep down, I think I always knew who she really was. I just didn't want to believe the woman I loved could look me in the eyes and lie that easily. You ever have that gut feeling that something's wrong, but you can't prove it, and you start to hate yourself for even thinking it? That's where I was. Every instinct I had told me she was lying, but every time I tried to bring it up, she made me feel insane for even asking. It was like she could read my doubts before I said them out loud, and twist them into proof that I was the problem. It started with her phone. She used to leave it anywhere, on the table, in the car, face up, but then she started keeping it close. Too close. Even when she showered, it was right there on the counter, face down. When I asked why, she just smiled and said, "It's called privacy, babe. You should try it sometime." She'd get random calls and walk out of the room, pretending they were work. And I want to believe that. I really did. But she didn't work the kind of job where people called her at midnight. One time, I woke up and saw the glow of her phone. She was texting someone, smiling. When I asked who it was, she said she couldn't sleep and was watching TikToks. But I saw the reflection in her eyes. It wasn't TikTok. It was messages. Still, I didn't say anything, because I was tired. Tired of the fights. Tired of feeling like I was begging for honesty from someone who treated me like a stranger. A few weeks later, I decided to test something. I told her I had to stay late at work, but really I left early. I parked down the street from our apartment, lights off, just sitting there in the car, telling myself I'd wait 15 minutes and go home like nothing happened. 10 minutes later, I saw her come out of the building. She was dressed up, heels, red lipstick, that same perfume she wore on our first date. My heart was pounding. I told myself maybe she was meeting a friend. Maybe I was overthinking again. But then I saw the car pull up. A black sedan. A guy got out, tall, clean-cut, familiar. He hugged her like he'd done it before. She laughed. That same laugh she used on me when she wanted to make me forget we were fighting. And when she leaned in and kissed him, I swear my body just shut down. I didn't even feel angry. Just empty. I stayed there for maybe an hour, not moving, just watching the streetlights blur. I wanted to call her, to scream, to make her explain it, but I couldn't. I wanted her to come home and lie again, because hearing her lie felt easier than facing the truth. When she finally walked through the door later that night, I pretended I was asleep. She slipped into bed, smelling like the perfume she knew drove me crazy. She put her arm around me and whispered, "I missed you." And in that moment, I realized something I'll never forget. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even hiding it. She was testing how blind love could make me. And I failed the test completely. After that night, I promised myself I'd confront her. I'd get proof, make her admit it, in this game once and for all. But when you've lived too long with someone who knows how to twist your mind, you start second-guessing even the truth. Still, I needed to see it with my own eyes, not just shadows and assumptions. The next few days, I acted normal. I still texted her good morning, still kissed her before work, still smiled when she told me she loved me. But I was watching everything. What time she left, who she messaged, how her voice changed when she talked to me. I noticed she laughed more when she was on her phone than when she was with me. And sometimes, when I'd walk into the room, she'd lock her screen so fast her thumb would leave a print. One night, she went to a girls' dinner. I knew the restaurant. She said she'd be back by 10. At 9:30, I drove there. Sat across the street. No car. No girls. No dinner. Just her, standing outside with him, the same guy I'd seen before. He had his hand on her waist like it belonged there. She leaned into him, laughed, and whispered something that made his smile drop before she kissed him. It wasn't first kiss. It was something they'd done 100 times before. I took photos, not to show her, just so I wouldn't convince myself later that it was a dream. Because she had this way of making me believe my own eyes were lying. When she came home, she was glowing, said dinner was great, and asked if I want to watch a movie. I just looked at her and asked, "How is he?" Her whole face changed. For a second, her eyes went cold, empty, and then she laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh my God," she said, "you're still doing this? You really need help." I showed her the pictures. She looked at them for half a second, then back at me with the calmest expression I'd ever seen. "That's not me," she said. I stared at her, thinking she was joking. But she kept going. "You really need to stop editing things to make yourself feel right. It's sad, honestly. I can't even go out with my friends without you creating some fantasy." I told her I was there. I saw her. I described her dress, her hair, even the scar on her leg that the camera had caught. And she smiled, not nervous, not scared. Smiled like she'd already won. "Ethan," she said softly, touching my face, "you've always had a jealous streak. You imagine things. You always have." And just like that, my anger turned to confusion. What if I had made a mistake? What if I saw someone who just looked like her? The brain plays tricks, right? I started doubting my own memory, even with the proof right there in my hand. She leaned closer, whispered, "I love you. I would never do that to you. Please don't ruin what we have, because you can't trust anyone." I wanted to scream. I wanted to push her away. But instead, I froze. Because when you've been gaslit for long enough, you stop trusting even yourself. That night, she fell asleep beside me like nothing had happened. And I lay there, staring at the ceiling, realizing I didn't know what was real anymore. The photos, the kiss, the lies, or maybe the version of her I kept trying to believe in. It's strange how long you can live in denial, how much pain you can swallow before something inside you finally snaps. For me, that moment came one afternoon when I decided I couldn't live in her reality anymore. I needed the truth, no matter how ugly it was. So I started digging, quietly, carefully. I wasn't angry, I was done. I checked her social media, her messages, even the small details I used to ignore. I found an old conversation thread between her and her coworker, a guy I'd met several times, someone I actually liked. The one she always called such a sweetheart, someone she insisted was like a brother. His name was Adam. The messages weren't new. They went back months. At first, they looked harmless, inside jokes, emojis, small talk. But as I scrolled, they changed. Compliments. "You looked amazing today. I wish we could talk like this in person." Then photos. Nothing too explicit, but enough to tell me everything I needed to know. I just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling my hands go numb. I wasn't even surprised anymore. Just empty. Like all the fight had finally drained out of me. When she came home that evening, she was humming, actually humming, like life was perfect. I didn't even say hello. I just handed her the phone. Her smile froze when she saw what I'd found. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, with that same cold calm she always had, she whispered, "You shouldn't have looked through my things." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "It's not what it looks like." Just that. I asked her how long. She shrugged. Does it matter? That hit harder than anything. Because in her mind, it didn't matter. Not what she'd done. Not what it cost me. Not what I believed about her. I asked if it was just him. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Would it make you feel better if it wasn't?" That's when I realized she wasn't sorry because she didn't see it as betrayal. To her, this was power, control, proof that she could do whatever she wanted and still have me right there, begging for honesty. I told her I wanted her gone. I said I couldn't do it anymore. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just smiled, that same half smile that used to make me melt, and said, "You'll call me. You always do." And she walked out, calm, confident, like she owned every piece of me, even as she left. But she was wrong. That night, for the first time, I didn't call. I didn't text. I just sat there in the dark, staring at the wall, realizing how much of myself I'd lost trying to love her. I thought it was over. I thought that was the end. But the next morning, I found out the truth went even deeper. Because when I got to work, Adam wasn't there. His desk was cleared out. And my boss pulled me aside to tell me something that made my stomach turn. He didn't quit. He was fired for inappropriate behavior with a client. And that client was her. The moment my boss said her name, something inside me snapped. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was humiliation. She hadn't just cheated on me. She had used someone I trusted, someone who worked beside me every single day. She'd crossed into my world, into the one place she'd promised to leave alone. I asked my boss what happened, pretending I didn't already know. He hesitated, then said that a few clients had complained about unprofessional communication between Adam and one particular woman. When they pulled the messages, they found her name, her phone number, even her address. It wasn't just flirting. She'd filed a formal complaint against him, claimed he'd been harassing her, sending unwanted texts, showing up at her place, making her uncomfortable. The company had no choice but to terminate him. But I'd seen those messages. I knew who'd started it. It was her. She'd written to him first. She was the one saying things like, "You make me feel alive again," and "I wish Ethan could be more like you." And now, she destroyed him, just like she was destroying me. When I left the office, I called Adam. His number was disconnected. I tracked down his social media. Gone. Every account deleted. It was like he'd vanished overnight. That evening, she came over as if nothing had happened. She smiled, kissed my cheek, asked if I'd missed her. I didn't say a word. I just stared at her, wondering how someone could look so normal after leaving that kind of wreckage behind. Then she said something that still haunts me. "You see how dangerous men can be when they get obsessed?" Poor Adam. I had to protect myself. I felt my blood boil. "You destroyed him," I said. Her face didn't even flinch. "He destroyed himself," she whispered, pouring herself a glass of wine like we were having a casual evening. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw that glass against the wall. But I didn't. I just stood there, numb, realizing this was never about love. Not for her. It was a game. She'd gotten bored of me, so she found a new target, someone close enough to make me jealous, someone connected enough to ruin both of us when things exploded. And when it all went too far, she flipped the story, made him the villain, made me the fool. The worst part? Everyone believed her. When word spread around the office, I could feel the looks, the whispers. "Isn't that his girlfriend? Did you hear what happened?" Maybe he knew. She had taken my life, my relationships, my reputation, and twisted them into something poisonous. That night, when she finally fell asleep beside me, I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw what I'd been ignoring for months. There was no warmth, no guilt, just calm satisfaction, like she'd finished what she came to do. I got up quietly, went into the bathroom, and stared at myself in the mirror. I didn't even recognize the man looking back. And for the first time in my life, I whispered something I never thought I'd say. I think she enjoys breaking people, but I didn't know yet how far she was willing to go. Because a few days later, I found out she wasn't done with me either. I thought walking away would end it. I thought once I stopped answering her messages, stopped opening the door, stopped pretending we still had something left, she'd move on, find another victim, and finally let me breathe. But that's not how women like her work. She didn't want to lose me. She wanted to destroy me. At first, it was small. She'd text late at night, short messages like, "I miss you," or "I hope you're okay." I ignored them. Then came the guilt trips. "After everything I've done for you, you can't even answer?" Still, I stayed silent. But silence, to her, wasn't rejection, it was a challenge. A few weeks later, one of my coworkers pulled me aside. He looked uncomfortable. "Hey man," he said, "I just want to give you a heads up. Alyssa's been talking to people, saying some pretty heavy stuff." I felt my stomach twist. "What kind of stuff?" He hesitated. "That you used to yell at her. That you had anger issues." I laughed at first, because it sounded insane. I'd never even raised my voice at her, not once. I thought he was joking, but then HR called me in. Apparently, she'd filed a report. Said I'd been emotionally abusive, controlling, that I'd threatened her when she tried to leave. She told them she feared for her safety. And the worst part? She had evidence. Screenshots, texts, voicemails. Only they weren't real. Not exactly. She'd edited them, cut pieces of old conversations together to make it sound like I was losing my mind. My words, twisted, rearranged, weaponized. I sat in that meeting, looking at a version of myself I didn't even recognize. A monster she'd built from fragments of truth and lies. Well, I confronted her about it. She just smiled. Calm, cold, unshaken. "I warned you not to push me," she said. "You made me do this." She said it so casually, like it was logic, not cruelty. I tried to explain the truth to my boss, to friends, to anyone who'd listen, but the more I tried to defend myself, the guiltier I looked. She had planned every detail. She'd told people I was unstable, manipulative, obsessive. That if I ever reached out, it was just another attempt to control her. And suddenly, that's who I became in everyone's eyes. The man who couldn't let go. The angry ex. The villain of her story. It's terrifying how fast someone can rewrite your entire life when they know exactly which strings to pull. She didn't just take my peace. She took my reputation, my job, my friendships. People I'd known for years started keeping their distance. My parents asked if I was okay, but I could hear it in their voices. Even they weren't sure what to believe. And she knew. She knew exactly what she'd done. A week later, she sent me one last message. Just 3 words. "You deserved it." No explanation. No closure. Just that. That's when I realized the truth. She didn't destroy me because I hurt her. She did it because it made her feel powerful. Because watching me fall apart was her way of proving she could control everything, even after I walked away. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't done yet. Because if she wanted to paint me as the villain, I was finally ready to show her what one really looks like. There's a moment when pain stops being pain, when it hardens into something sharper, something colder. I remember the exact night it happened. I was sitting in the dark, surrounded by silence, realizing I'd lost everything. My job, my friends, my name, all because she decided to rewrite our story. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel broken. I felt clear. If she wanted to play games, I'd play smarter. I started small. I went through every old message, every voice note, every photo we ever shared. I kept them all. Not because I missed her, but because I'd learned the hard way that truth needed proof. And somewhere in those hundreds of messages, I found what I was looking for, her lies contradicting themselves. She told her friends I threatened her on the phone the night she left. But in that same time frame, there were texts from her saying, "I miss you already. Don't stop loving me." She claimed I isolated her from everyone. Yet I had videos from parties, group trips, photos of her smiling with the same people she said I forbade her from seeing. I built a timeline, every call, every message, every lie. Piece by piece, her story started to fall apart. Then I reached out to Adam. It took weeks, but I found him. Different number, different city, new job. He didn't want to talk at first, said he wanted nothing to do with her. But when I told him I was her next victim, there was silence. Then he said, "Yeah, that sounds about right." He sent me everything, screenshots, voice notes, even the emails she used when she reported him. All faked. She told him the same thing she told me, that I was abusive, that she was scared of me, that she needed protection. And when he got too close, she flipped it on him, just like she did to me. That was the pattern. That was her addiction. Not love. Not attention. Destruction. I didn't post it online. I didn't call her out in public. I knew she'd twist that too. Instead, I sent the evidence directly to my boss, to HR, to everyone who believed her lies. No emotion, just facts. And this time, the silence worked in my favor. One by one, people started reaching out, quietly, cautiously. Apologies, disbelief, regret. My name started to clear, slowly. Not fully, because lies stick deeper than truth. But I was no longer the villain. I was just the man who survived her. The last time I saw her was by accident. I was at a coffee shop, and she walked in like she owned the place. That same confidence, that same smirk. She didn't see me at first. She was with someone new, holding his hand, whispering in his ear. I should have felt angry, but I didn't. I just felt tired. When she finally noticed me, our eyes met. And for a moment, something flickered in her expression. Not guilt, not fear, just annoyance. Like I was a story she'd already finished. She smiled. That same, perfect smile that used to break me. And she mouthed the words, "Still alive?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because I finally understood her. She never wanted love. She wanted control. And when control was gone, the game stopped mattering. I paid for my freedom with everything I had, but at least I was free. Sometimes I still think about her, about how someone so beautiful could carry that much poison behind her eyes. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if she ever looks back and feels anything at all. But then I remember, people like her don't look back. They just move on to the next soul they can burn. And for the first time in a long time, I'm just grateful that soul isn't mine anymore.